Hey guys, and welcome back to another Shadow Priest PTR preparation video. In this video, I want to go through a lot of the new gear and talk about, um, see what might be good, what might be bad, what kind of things you're going to want to be targeting, right? That kind of thing. There's a whole bunch of new trinkets. There's a whole bunch of new stuff from the raid, obviously, right? And there's a new mega dungeon coming out in 9.1, in case anyone hasn't heard, called Tazavesh, right? So we'll go through those and we'll see, what looks good, what looks bad, right? So first, let's start with the new mega dungeon, Tazavesh. So important to keep in mind, this is just going to be, uh, this is not going to be available for Mythic Plus in 9.1. So all of the other dungeons, you're going to be able to upgrade your gear with Valor, right? And you're going to get higher eye level versions by doing higher Mythic Plus keys, just like in 9.0. But in Tazavesh, you can't do that, right? So Tazavesh gear is going to drop at one item level, not item level 1, but a specific item level, and it's going to be that item level always, right? It's not upgradable. So keep that in mind. Um, and then, yeah, let's just go through and look at this stuff. So, interesting thing to note, 4 of our conduits drop from here. So, these things used to drop from other places. I think all 4 of these actually used to drop from Castle Nathria. So, it's probably just that they put them in here so that you don't have to go back to Castle Nathria to get the higher item level versions of these. The important one to notice, though, is Translucent Image. This one is like our best defensive conduit. Um, our best endurance conduit, I guess. So it now, to get the higher item level versions, it now drops from Tazavesh. So this is something you're going to want to do this dungeon for. It drops off the 5th boss, it looks like, so Osmi. So keep that in mind. Okay, we have a staff that drops from Solea, which is the last boss, it looks like. This staff is mastery heavy with haste, which is really good for us, right? So this staff could be a pretty strong contender, depending on what item level you get it at. Like if it was, because right now the staff I currently have equipped, the Spire of the Long Dark from Mythic Denathrius, is by far our best weapon in the game. But this staff right here, the Staff of Fractured Space-Time, is like almost the exact same stats, and it's at item level 226, right? So it's likely that getting this staff is going to be an upgrade for you, uh, even if you have the Mythic Denathrius weapon, right? If this dungeon drops gear that's higher than probably 233 even, which I think it does, or I think it will at least, this staff will be a good upgrade. So I would be aiming for this staff as well. This dagger, nothing to say about this. It's our 2 worst stats. Don't want this. Pretty much just a garbage item. But it's got an appearance though, so maybe you want to collect the appearance. This offhand, not good as well. Crit verse, we don't want that. This headpiece, also bad. Crit verse. And we have Shadow Flame Prism on our head, or at least some of us do. So obviously this is a downgrade. This neck piece isn't too bad. It's haste heavy, which is nice, but it's also got versatility, which is not nice, right? Because versatility is our worst stat. So if you find yourself really low on haste, this is probably a good option. Although we'll have to see. Like this is worse than the one from Halls of Atonement, because that one's haste mastery. So this one is obviously worse, right? But this is not the worst item. This other neck is crit heavy with some haste on it. Again, not bad, but not great, right? We would prefer haste heavy, and then crit is also not great for us. The shoulder piece is not great. Crit heavy, some haste. Haste is good, but crit is not. So this back piece is not too bad. We don't have a lot of great back piece options already. And this one's Haste Mastery versus, or Mastery Haste versus our current best in slot, which is Haste Verse. So this could be a potential upgrade for you. It's something worth simming. So yeah, keep that in mind. Drape of Titanic Dreams, not bad. This duplicating drape, not great. Crit haste. It actually has more haste than the other back piece, which is nice. But at the same time, it's got crit instead of mastery, which we really don't really want. So then a chest piece, mastery heavy with some versatility on it. This is not going to be an upgrade almost certainly for anybody. High mastery is good, but having verse is bad. Some bracers that are haste crit. These are better than the bracers I'm currently using, but whether they're better than all of the bracers in the game is a hard question to answer. The BOE bracers from Nathria are our current quote-unquote best in slot, although the difference between those and like the ones I'm wearing is like super small. So these being haste heavy and having crit on them is better than the ones I'm wearing that are haste heavy with verse, right? So depending on how much of an item level upgrade these are, they could be pretty good actually. So keep that in mind. So the bracers, a back piece, and a weapon from here so far are pretty good. These gloves are pretty good, mastery heavy with haste, but unlike the impossibly oversized mitts from Sludge Fist, they're a lot closer. So if you can tell, the impossibly oversized mitts that I'm currently wearing are 74 mastery and 32 haste, whereas these gloves are 58 mastery and 49 haste. That's a better stat weight, honestly. More haste is better than more mastery, so I could see these being a pretty good piece to pick up. This waist piece is just that, kind of a waste. You don't really want it. Mastery heavy, but not great. These leggings also not great. Mastery heavy with crit. These feet are okay. They're haste heavy, which is nice, but then they've got versatility on them, which makes them less good. And then we're into the rings. There's 2 rings, it looks like, that drop from this place. This first ring is super mastery heavy with a little bit of verse. Typically, we want to run really haste heavy rings because you get a lot of stats from rings, and haste heavy rings will give you a lot of haste, right? Like my 2 rings are almost 330 haste between the 2 rings, right? So this is probably not a good ring to. You probably shouldn't be going for this ring. And then this other ring is really bad. It's got some haste on it, which is nice, but it's got a lot of verse, and you don't want that. And then let's look at these. This is a healing trinket, so you don't really care about this one. It gives you some haste, which is nice, but this trinket is nothing to write home about. Maybe if you're a healing priest, this might be something you want to look into, but as a shadow priest, not great. And then this one is not bad, actually. So it gives you 101 haste. We would prefer to have like an intellect trinket, right? Like my soul ending ruby gives me 77 intellect. So you'd prefer to have intellect on one of these, but having haste is not bad. And depending on the procs per minute of this thing, your ranged attacks and abilities have a chance to summon a male elemental that throws unstable goods at your target, dealing however much arcane damage. At 226, it does 3,233, it looks like. So if this procs a lot, then it could be really good. But I don't know how it could be better than like Soul Letting Ruby, for example. Soul Letting Ruby is just so good. So unless this procs like an absurd amount, it's probably not very good. But it's one that I would get and keep in my bags just in case. Oh, and then there's one more. This one's interesting. Solea's Secret Technique. Everyone can get this. not just priests. It's got intellect, agility, and strength on it, so everybody's going to be able to loot it. And you use it on a player in your party or raid, granting them 20 of their highest secondary stat. So, like, if somebody used it on me, it'd give me 20 haste. Not 20% haste, just 20 of the stat haste, right? And then it also grants you 100 of that same stat. So, what might be cool is if you like you use it on another shadow priest or something, right? Because their stats should be very similar to your stats. So it gives them 20 haste and it gives you 100 haste, which is not bad, right? But at the same time, uh, this is not a ton of stat, right? Like if we look at my haste right now, I've got 963 haste. So another 100 haste is going to be all right, right? It's about 10% of what I've got right now. Um, but we start hitting diminishing returns, so it's not going to give me an extra 10% haste. It'll give me maybe an extra 6%, 7% or something. Um, and we get way better stats. We get way more than 100 of a stat when we use Soul Letting Ruby, right? I can get up to 1,000 of a stat, right? So it's like 10 times better. Um, but I could see this being an interesting thing to play around. Uh, I'll probably get it, hold on to it, and then never use it, if I'm being honest. So yeah, so that's all the loot from Tazavesh. The key things to keep in mind: uh, some conduits. These are important to get upgrades to. You're not going to be able to use Venari anymore to upgrade your conduits past 226. So you have to get them from where they drop. This translucent image one, I'm going to be farming this like crazy because it's pretty important. And then this staff, the staff of fractured space time is really good. What was it? I think there was a wrist piece. This back piece, the drape of Titanic Dreams. I'm gonna try and get that as well. And then this wrist piece. Oh, yeah, maybe it was either this wrist piece or these gloves. Probably gonna try to get both of these. This wrist piece, Auctioneer's Counting Bracers, and these gloves, ciphered gloves. I'm gonna try and get both of these, I think. So those are the big pieces I'm gonna try and get out of this dungeon. But other than that, there's not a ton of really great stuff in here. But this weapon is really, really good. So that is depending on how the raid looks. So let's take a look at Sanctum of Domination. Spoiler alert: there's going to be some lore spoilers, because this raid has some bosses in it that may shock you if you don't already know. But we'll go through and look at them. So again, there's going to be some conduits that drop from the raid, obviously. And then there's, a bunch of pets. Don't really care about those. Keep going. The Stygian Ember, not entirely sure what that is. It might be a crafting reagent, but this is something that, like I said, I'm not positive what it is, so maybe. It says it drops from the Terragru and others, so I'm guessing it drops from all the bosses or most of the bosses, so probably not something you have to like farm from a certain boss, but depending on what it's used for, it could be cool. Okay, and then let's get into the weapons. Obviously, this is at Mythic, so these are going to be really high item level, so they're going to look really good. But, I mean, you're going to be aiming for the Mythic versions anyway, so we may as well look at them. This staff that drops off the Remnant of Ner'zhul is haste heavy with some versatility on it. Contrary to the other two staffs, the one I'm using right now and the one from Tazavesh that we just talked about, this one is haste heavy, whereas the other two were mastery heavy. I think at least. Let's go look real quick. Tazavesh. Yeah, mastery heavy. So that would be nice to have more haste, right? But it's got verse on it, which is not great, so I probably... this is definitely a DPS upgrade for me right now, because it's got so much intellect on it, just because it's a higher item level. So if I got, like, on Heroic, if I got this or something, I would use it. But it's probably not best in slot, right? Maledict Opus is the next staff. Drops from Kel'Thuzad, the second to last boss. Not great. It gives you, because it's the second to last boss, it is 7 item levels higher, which is nice, and it is almost certainly an upgrade over the other one, even though the stats are weighted more poorly because it's crit mastery versus haste first, right? Um, but still, probably not the weapon you're going to want to go for, unless there is no good weapon from uh, what's her name, from Sylvanas. But yeah, so this might end up being our best in slot weapon just because it's the highest item level, um, which would be unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes, right? So probably a good thing to pick up, right? And obviously, if you can get the mythic version, really nice. But hopefully, like the staff from Tazavesh is better than this probably. Aside from the fact that this is way higher item level, so this is definitely better than that staff just because of the item level. But if they were the same item level, the Tazavesh staff would be better. So in like 9.2, I guess, when we can finally do Mythic Plus Tazavesh, that weapon is going to be better than this one. But this one is probably our best in slot um, until then. So definitely be going for this. And then we've got a dagger, a one-handed dagger. Not very good. Mastery with versatility. We have a one-handed mace with crit and verse. This is super, super bad. Definitely don't want that. We got a mastery crit offhand. Probably not worth it. We got a crit haste offhand. Also not very good. So yeah, it looks like our best weapon is going to be this Maledict Opus, right? Almost certainly. So I wouldn't try it. I wouldn't worry about any of the other weapons. I'd just try to get the Kel'Thuzad staff. And then we're on to a couple of headpieces. First headpiece is haste heavy with crit, and it's got a domination socket. So I'm not going to go into domination sockets too much right now, but they're like set bonuses basically, where if you get 3, like it says on this piece, equip 3, socket 3 unholy shards to gain Chaos Bane. I don't know what Chaos Bane is, but it's going to be like a set bonus. You get 3 pieces with domination sockets. You put 3 unholy shards in them, and then you get this additional ability or whatever called Chaos Bane. So haven't taken a huge look at the domination sockets yet. I will be doing that, and I'll make a video about it probably where I go into detail about what ones you should be trying to get. But just because it has a domination socket on it, you probably want to get this in case this is really strong. Plus, it's got a lot of haste, which is nice, and crit, which is okay. And then you've got this headpiece from Sylvanas, which is verse heavy with some mastery on it, but it also has the domination socket. And because it's from the last boss, it's going to be a higher item level. So I would probably get both of these actually. Although I'm betting the 252 one is better, depending on how good the domination sockets are and how good intellect is for us in 9.1, right? Because this one from Sylvanas is only 7 more intellect, which in 9.0 is not huge. It would be nice to have 7 more intellect, right? It's not huge, probably like a 20 DPS increase, something like that. So I would probably get both of these. It's hard to say which one's better, but probably this one. We'll just have to see though. This is something you could sim, obviously. So okay, then we'll go into the neck pieces. This one's interesting. Drops off of Kel'Thuzad, Interplanar Keystone. Has almost 200 haste on it. That's huge. That's a ton of haste. So compared to like the neck pieces from Tazavesh, this is obviously a lot better, right? So a ton of haste, and then it's got crit. This is probably still worth it. This might end up being our best in slot neck. Although, after I say that, we've got this one, which is mastery heavy, and it has haste on it. Those are our 2 best stats, and it's very similar to the neck I'm wearing now, which is the Charm of Eternal Winter from Castle Nathria, where it's just got a ton of haste and then some, I mean a ton of mastery and then some haste. So this will be interesting to see which one of these is actually better. I would lean towards the Periapt of Pristine Preservation from the Terragru, but we'll just have to see where our stats end up. And then this neck piece from the Remnant of Ner'zhul is really bad. Just a bunch of crit and some versatility. Unless our stat weights change drastically, which it's not looking like they're going to, this neck piece is not worth it. Okay, then we have another Domination socket. It's on our shoulders, right? So both of these aren't very good. Like this one's versatility heavy with some haste, and then this one is crit heavy with some mastery. So these are probably about equal, honestly, on how good they are for us. Haste is better than mastery, so you'd probably end up taking this one. Also, this one drops from Kel'Thuzad, so it's 7 item levels higher. That's definitely something to keep in mind. It gives you 5 more intellect than the other one. So this one is almost certainly better than the other one. So Frame of the False Margrave is probably what you want to be going for. I don't know if Winds of Winter is going to be a very strong domination effect or not, so keep that in mind, but you can get it if you're wearing this piece. So then onto the back pieces. Both of these are really bad. 60 crit, 30 mastery, and 26 haste and 64 versatility. Neither of these are anything to write home about. The only good thing about them is that they're such a high item level, so you can probably get probably one of the dungeon capes is going to be better than these, but it's hard to say, because I mean these are both pretty bad, but at mythic item level they might be, you know, the best you can go for. So then we got some chest pieces. This chest piece is really nice, from Painsmith Raznal. This is almost certainly our best in slot. It's 112 haste and 48 mastery, and it has a domination socket on it. You almost certainly are going to want to try and get this chest piece. This other chest piece is not bad either. 114 mastery, which is really nice, but then it's got crit on it. It also has a domination socket, right? This is the one I'm going to be going for, though, the one from Painsmith Raznal. So I would be aiming for this for sure. And then moving on to the wrist pieces. Neither of these are very good. They both have domination sockets, though, which is nice, right? And one of them is from Sylvanas, so it's got more intellect. But yeah, they're both pretty bad. Like the one from Sylvanas is verse heavy, so that's not good. And then the one that's a lower item level happens to be mastery heavy. So yeah, probably not great, right? One from Sylvanas you'll want to get just because it's from Sylvanas, right? And it's got higher item level. You'll want to keep pretty much everything you get off of Sylvanas and Kel'Thuzad, just because they're higher item level. Okay, then the hand pieces, the gloves. The gloves from the Eye of the Jailer are really good. They're haste heavy with mastery. They're like the right stats, so I'm definitely going to be going for these. And then the ones from Fate Scribe Rokalo are mastery heavy with some verse, so probably not worth it. Definitely, these Grasps of the Clairvoyant Sage are almost certainly going to be our best in slot hands, so I'm going to go for those for sure. Okay, then the waist. They both have a domination socket, which is nice, and one of them is from Kel'Thuzad, so I'm probably going to end up going for that one, right? Because we don't have any super good waist options. So this Sash of Duplicitous Magics is probably the one you're going to want to go for, but we'll just have to see, right? And then these leg pieces. Both of these are pretty bad. Probably going to want to go for the one with haste on it, which is from the Terragru Sorcerer's Headlong Leg Wraps, but neither of these are very good. Death God's leggings from the other side, if you can get them this high of an item level, are for sure better than both of these, so keep that in mind. Then there are 3 different feet pieces. None of them are from the last 2 bosses, which means you're just going to be wanting to go for the one with better stats, right? which is probably the one from the Guardian of the first ones, Sandals of Sacred Symmetry, because they've got haste and mastery on them. None of them are haste heavy, and the other two have crit and verse. So yeah, you're gonna want to go for this one, Sandals of Sacred Symmetry. Although there may be better options from the dungeons, right? So sim that probably. Okay, then we got a bunch of rings, 4 rings it looks like. And there is one ring from Sylvanas, but there isn't one from Kel'Thuzad. And then these rings, this ring looks really good, Sworn Oath of the Nine. It's from the Nine, obviously. This ring is probably going to be one of our 2 best in slot rings because it's got such high haste and mastery. And then these other 2, this one's got a lot of haste, which is nice, but it's crit. Kind of similar to the Ritualist's Treasured Ring that I'm running right now, where it's really high haste, but then it has crit instead of mastery. So this might be nice, but this one you're almost certainly not going to take. Oscillating Ouroboros, almost certainly don't want that. Sworn Oath of the Nine, definitely going to go for that. And then this one from Sylvanas, I'll probably go for this one as well, just because it has a ton of stats on it because it's such a high item level. It's either going to be these 2 rings, Sworn Oath of the Nine and Sylvanas ring, Tarnished Insignia of Quel'Tha Loss, or it's going to be Sworn Oath of the Nine and Miniature Breaking Wheel, which comes from Paintsmith Raznal. So those are the rings you're probably going to want to go for. And then in the trinkets, there's a lot of trinkets in here, so I'll try to make this quick, but there are a lot, so bear with me. Carved Ivory Keepsake drops from Fate Scribe Rocalo, gives you 98 intellect, which is really nice. And it's a passive, so it's on equip. You have a chance to foresee damage taken by your allies, healing them instantly for 1,866 when they are injured. Almost certainly not going to run this. It's like never going to be worth it. It doesn't, no damage, and you've got healers for that, right? So maybe a healer will run this, but definitely not a Shadow Priest. Ebon Soul Vice. This one, 98 intellect, has an on equip and an on use. So the on use is curse an enemy, dealing 1.8k shadow damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds. Duration increases by up to 100% based on their missing health. So this is similar to Soul Letting Ruby, where you want to use it on something that's low health, right? Because it lasts up to twice as long. But an 1800 damage every 2 seconds. That's only 900 DPS, right? So not great, but obviously not bad. 900 DPS is pretty good, but it only lasts for up to 24 seconds, right? But then the on equip is if the target dies while affected by this trinket, it leaves a shredded soul behind, which you can collect to grant to gain 34 critical strike for 20 seconds. That part does not matter. That's like nothing. The part that matters is the on use, and that could be pretty good depending on where this ends up. If these are the actual numbers, if it's only ever going to deal that much damage, then it's probably not as good as Soul Letting Ruby, especially if you can get a really high item level Soul Letting Ruby, right? But this is one that I will probably get and keep, and might have some nice use cases. The next one is the Forbidden Necromantic Tome. This one is pretty interesting. It gives you a bunch of intellect. It drops from Kel'Thuzad, so it's 259. When you equip it, your damaging spells have a chance to increase your critical strike by 79 for 15 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Depending on how often this procs, it could be pretty good. It's not 1,000 critical strike like Soul Letting Ruby, but if you could have really high uptime of this buff, of all 3 stacks, that would put you at like, it'd be like 230 critical strike. If you could have that for 90% of a dungeon or something, that could be really, really good, right? But then the fun part about this is the on use. You can raise the remains of a fallen ally as a skeletal warrior for 30 seconds. And actually, the skeletal warrior does some pretty good damage. So this is kind of a meme trinket. Um, it'll be super interesting to see. I'm sure there will eventually be a kill of Sylvanas where the only way they kill it is by somebody raises somebody else as they die, and then the skeletal warrior is the thing that kills Sylvanas. So that could be pretty cool. This is one I'll probably get, but again, not great. It might be, it might replace Kabbalist's Hymnal though, um, just because it's like similar amount of crit, but we'll see. Resonant Silver Bell drops from Kel'Thuzad. When you heal an ally who is below 40% health, they get more healing. This is a healing trinket, so we don't care about it. Not very good either. Might be good for healing. I have no idea, but not good for Shadow. This one, also valid only for healing specializations, so we're not going to want that one. Shadowed Orb of Torment. This one is pretty interesting. So this is kind of a bane and a boon situation, right? So you get 98 intellect, and then when you use it, you gaze into the orb, suffering 18,879 shadow damage over 2 seconds. So that's like a pretty significant amount of damage really quickly. To increase your mastery by 304 for up to 40 seconds. The longer you gaze, the more tormented and insightful you become. So I'm not sure if this tooltip is correct, because if you only have to hold it for 2 seconds, then obviously, well, not obviously, there are times where you wouldn't, but that's not a very long time, so you would probably try to get the full 2 seconds every time you used it. But 304 mastery is not great. I would assume that they would want you to be sitting there channeling this longer, like Ajara's Font of Power, to get more stat, but this one might be really good, but probably not. Mastery is good for us, but it's not the best, so I'll probably get this one as well. Titanic Ocular Gland. This one is really weird, and probably not worth it. Again, it's like a bane and a boon. Anyone can get it, so it's got intellect, agility, and strength on it. And then when you equip it, while your health is above 50%, you're judged worthy, increasing your highest secondary stat by 127. And while your health is below 50%, you are judged unworthy, decreasing your highest secondary stat by 127. So it's not often that you're below 50% health for a very long time, like in a raid. So you would usually get the worthy part of this, the above 50%, but it's just not worth it. I mean, it's gonna feel really bad when your stuff gets dropped, and it's not gonna feel super good when your stuff gets bumped up, right? So I'll probably get it, test it out a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna be super good. And then this one, Tome of Monstrous Constructions, gives some intellect, and then on use is study the tome, learning the weakness of your targeted enemy. Your damaging abilities have a very high chance to deal 686 additional shadow damage to your studied foe. And then if you study a new enemy, it removes the benefits of any prior studies, right? So I've seen some people use this, and it's kind of interesting. So let's say it's not unit specific, and what I mean by that is if you have two rats, let's say, and you study one of the rats, you're going to get the benefit from having studied that rat for any rat that you hit, right? So if you hit either rat, it doesn't matter, right? Or let's say you use a target dummy. If you study a raider's target dummy, a raider's training dummy, or whatever, then any other raider's training dummies you hit, you'll get this benefit for, but no other kind of training dummy, right? So it's like type of mob specific, right? Which kind of makes sense because it's about like the monster, right? So if you use it on like a blight bag in necrotic weight, you'll do more damage to any blight bag, right? Not just the one you used it on, but you won't do more damage to other stuff, right? So this one could be interesting depending on how much it procs. And it's only a 1 minute cooldown, so it'd be nice in like Mythic Plus maybe to be able to swap it between a bunch of stuff pretty quickly. But um, yeah, it's probably not great for raid scenarios, almost certainly. But it's pretty. It might be okay for Mythic Plus, so worth keeping an eye on this one. Obviously, well, not obviously, but um, I'm gonna try and get pretty much all of the trinkets when 9.1 comes out, just so I can have them in case something ends up being a lot better than it looked like on PTR or something, or the meta changes or whatever. But yeah, that's basically all the gear from Sanctum of Domination and from Tazavesh. Uh, there are some pretty sweet pieces in there, so try and get those if you can. Hopefully, this video was helpful and not a complete waste of time. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe. Feel free to join my Discord server, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.